Quick note of clarity before we start this. This is not attached to the Michael Bay universe. A lot of confusion has been around that, so we're getting it out the Transformers Rise of the Beast was directed by Michael Cable Jr. as the newest addition to the Transformers series in this sort of new, light reboot of the entire universe. In here, we reunite with the Autobots after a beacon is sent up that summons a dark force to Earth, which is the battle with the human characters in here, as well as a battle for the entire universe. Don't want to give a lot away about Transformers Rise of the Beast because I know there's a lot of hype going around the movie, but more so than anything, I really think there are some moments in here that are truly different. There are some things in here, considering everything that's gone on with the Transformers universe up to this point, that you can clearly tell effort was put in to make this film somewhat stand out from the others and not blend into the crowd as much. However, I will have to say this movie is, despite all its efforts, pretty much not anything new. This is the same tried and true and just clean-cut version of Transformers we've ever had. The plot is the same thing ever. There is a thing. It's a MacGuffin, and the bad guys want to get the MacGuffin, but the Transformers can't let them get the MacGuffin, and human characters get thrown in there in the mix, and it's like they have to protect the MacGuffin so the bad guys can't do a thing. That's the plot of the movie, and it pretty much follows the same plot threads. And also, something about this movie I didn't really care for either as much was this movie is, for the most part, pretty generic. It follows a lot of tropes that we see in modern film, Transformers, and in general, the way cinema's been going. This movie is very reliant on comedy, not so much so as the way Michael Bay films were, where they're more childish and just really crude at times. This is just over-reliance, I'd say, on comedy at times. For instance, we have Pete Davidson here as Mirage, who is a Transformer. He's this Porsche car that can do different things and project images himself. But however, if you're not into Pete Davidson, being on screen a lot, making jokes a lot, this can get pretty tiring. Also, Bumblebee's character in here still can't speak. There was something really unique they did with him that I liked, which is where he uses a lot of movie lines to communicate, which made for some very satisfying moments. And Optimus Prime, I think, is treated very well, as long as well Optimus Primal, because for the most part, the animal robots in here, I think, were pretty well done. My issue is I wanted to see more of them. I really was hoping this movie was going to have a lot more to do with them, like the Maximals, than it was the other Transformers, because it's the title Rise of the Beast, but this really isn't Rise of the Beast. They're just kind of there, and they pop up very late in the movie. They have a quick scene towards the beginning, but then they don't appear again until much later, and even though they're not given very much, and a lot of their things are cut rather short, I have to say. The villains in here are subpar at best, very cheesy, a lot of villain video game dialogue, as I like to call it, where it's like, I'll destroy you, taste my wrath, things like that, just really, even for Transformers, felt really, ugh. And the main villain doesn't have much of a presence, and the henchmen are alright. There's some really strange dialogue in here also, and some VFX are terrible. For instance, there's a part where a girl is looking into volcanic fire, and there's no lighting on her face at all. Also, has to do this thing in the third act that has to do with a button that they need to push without spoiling anything. But for some reason, the Transformers made it for themselves, but made it too small for them to push and only made it human-sized, despite the fact they haven't really interacted with humans much at this point. There's a lot of things like that in this movie that just don't make a lot of sense. Also, them being placed in the 90s, they didn't do, I think, as well as they could have with that. They could have put that to better use. Had a lot more to do with it. They didn't do very well. The characters in here are alright. I did like the female character in here a lot. However, the human storyline was just kind of boring. I didn't care really about it because I'm not watching Transformers to see people. I'm seeing CG robots. That's what I wanted to go see. I wanted to see CG robots that fight each other, which I did get, but it wasn't always the most satisfying. However, the third act of this movie has some very satisfying moments. There are some very funny jokes in here, particularly one with an airplane that lands that's a Transformer. I think that one was really funny. And Pete Davidson at times can land some really funny one-liners. This movie also has a very ludicrous ending in the final 5 minutes that I found to just be so ridiculous. And the movies still don't quite feel like I think by now we should know how to make a Transformer movie. We should have learned from our mistakes, but they haven't quite done that yet. The soundtrack in here has some really great songs and callbacks that I really did like a lot. Some of the action's pretty satisfying. The CGI is on and off. There's some cool things they do with the humans in here, and there's some great ideas. They try to make things more useful. However, some of these storylines just get dropped entirely, and they seem to be forgotten about. But I had fun a little bit with the movie. I'd say it takes till about halfway through the movie to really begin to pick up, but eventually it does. However, there's a lot of predictability to it, and a lot of moments are just like, okay. And a lot of fake outs that I wasn't a big fan of. This movie, for the most part, is alright. There's just not a lot here, and there are parts in this movie where it looked like just people were walking in front of a green screen, and I could tell the effects, again, just didn't hold up as well. I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of this movie. I know a lot of people are having fun with it and liking it. I'm not very impressed with anything that I saw in this movie. The young boy who plays our lead character's younger brother was very impressive. He gives a very good performance, but aside from that, and this small character at the beginning who's a car thief, but there's not much more than that. I think the movie's okay. There are some good moments. The humans act more like normal people, but that's it. There are some really great moments with the Transformers. The Transformers are pretty cool, but at times some seem sidelined, others don't quite seem right, and a lot of things are put in play that never come to play later. There's just so much about this movie. It doesn't seem very complete. I wasn't having the most fun with it. It's alright, though. I'd say watch this in theaters if you're a big Transformers fan. If not, wait till stream. It's not necessarily a very great movie, and it's alright overall with quite a bit of issues. I'm going to give Transformers Rise of the Beasts a 4 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you all next time.